Hi, I'm Syama, CEO of Scaling Retail. I'm so happy you get to join me today. We're going to talk about some really important information that's really going to help drive sales to your e-commerce platform. In particular, we're going to be taking some tips from chapter 4 of my latest book, Creating Fashion Websites That Sell, The Fashion Designer's Guide. Chapter 4 is all about creating pages, product pages that are really going to drive sales. Now, absolutely, it's going to be so important that you take some great notes. We're going to be going over some really critical steps so that you can actually make these changes and make these things happen to your website. But ultimately, the most important thing I'd say in this process is going to be to get deep with your website. Right? So step 1 is kind of get familiar with your platform. Start to understand the terminology, Google it. You're going to see things like meta tagging, coming up with short descriptions for your website, making sure each of your product pages have the right descriptions on the back end. And that's very different than obviously the right descriptions on the front end, which is what your customer is ultimately going to see. Right? So step 1, let's get familiar. Step 2, it's time to start getting creative about what it is you're going to be selling. Obviously, it's important to take a look online, start to do some key search terms. So that means really start to take a look at some of the keywords that you're going to be trying to sell on your page and see what's ranking and see how people are actually responding to that. There's some great platforms online like Moz and some other ones that actually allow you to do search rankings for keywords. So taking a look and doing some search rankings, figuring out what are the keywords that you're actually going to be optimizing for. And while that all might sound very technical, it's really going to help you with this next step of writing it. Now, writing a product page is extremely, extremely important for what someone's actually going to buy. Too often do I see people who are trying to sell $500 items on a website, and all they've really told me is 1 or 2 sentences about why I should buy it. To be honest, if I don't know your brand and you don't have any brand value or perceived value from a social standpoint, and I haven't read about you in any press, you really need to sell me on why it is that I am going to spend $500 on your product. Even still, if I'm going to spend $50 on your product, right? Your goal is actually going to be to sell me in the most romantic way possible, why it is that I need to own what it is that you're selling. You're going to need to do it in a way that optimizes for keywords, and you're going to need to do it in a way that optimizes for the voice that you're trying to get across to your customer. So in other tips and tricks, we've gone over developing your customer voice and understanding that. So it's important to take all of that information and research that you've done in terms of demographics, etc., and translate those words into your description pages. You're going to want to come up with a very descriptive title. So of course, if what you're selling is green high heels, I sure hope you tell me what shade of green it is. I sure hope that you're going to tell me what style of pump it is. Perhaps you're going to put something really catchy and interesting in there if you've had some press. As seen in is always a really interesting thing to put in your titles. And that's just kind of the beginning. Don't make your product descriptions too long. You certainly want to make sure that there's a couple sentences that talk about maybe the inspiration, where it was made, why you made it, what's the kind of reasoning behind it, maybe where someone else could see it, any type of press that that item has received. And then you want to go into some basic functional details. Again, these are things that you might say to yourself, well, of course I've already thought about it, but too often are people overlooking the very basic fundamentals that get a customer to convert. And what are those? Well, the first one is, of course, writing down your fabric content. People want to know the way in which a product is going to fit. They're going to want to know the way in which it's going to look on them, right? So, of course, having size information is going to be really critical, as well as having, if your product is on a model or if it's being shown to scale in any capacity, which it should, from images, you're going to want to definitely have on there the size that the model is wearing, right? I want to know as a customer how it is I'm going to be able to figure out if that item is actually going to look good on me. So anything that you can tell me about the way your product fits is going to help me trust that purchase. And ultimately, when I do make that buy, I'm not going to end up returning it because you actually sold me on wrong information. So make your product description fundamental details, make those really as clear as possible. Now, from a visual standpoint, there are a couple of different ways in which I really suggest formatting all of this content. You're going to really think about having everything kind of above the fold. As a customer, if I have to continuously scroll down to see everything, you're probably going to end up losing me. So when it comes to taking a look at things like product images, of course, you're going to have your one hero image. My favorite thing to actually do is have your thumbnails over to the side of it, to the left side of the page, so I can actually easily see what other alternate images you have. If you have product videos, great place to put them. If you have images of people on the street, customers, any press placements of people in those products, your product page is where you're going to want to double or triple expose those images. So when it comes to everything being above the fold, make sure your thumbnails are above the fold. Make sure that your product descriptions, if you have any relevant shipping information, things that are really going to help me buy. If you're selling something and it's $50 and you have a shipping promo going on and it's free shipping over $100, right? Make sure that I see that on your product page, because I want to know why it is I should buy from you and what are all the trigger points that are available to me. Secondly, making sure that your descriptions are both romantic and in the voice of your customer. Third, making sure all of your information is above the fold. Fourthly, you want to make sure you have product images that are professional. You want to make sure that they're to scale shots. You want to make sure you have lifestyle shots. And then of course, any other type of extra social shots, right? Press or social media. All of those things are really going to help tell the story. Now, before you press live on your product page, I highly suggest you take a look and double check on a couple things. One, the product images that you've been uploading, have you been changing the names on the product images? I sure hope you're not loading something, then the title of it is DSC_12345. That's not going to optimize that image, right? You want to make sure that all of the images on that product page are actually having their own unique product description. Again, further ways of optimizing your brand. The best format that I've found is to actually use the name of your company in the formatting of the title, as well as the product description. So the key highlighted like subject titles of that. So green, high heel, maybe it's Kelly green, maybe it's a forest green, but things like that that are really going to be super descriptive, right? So images are going to be the one place you really want to double check. Second thing to double check before you press live, make sure that you have everything on the back end set up in terms of all meta descriptions and tagging. It's so easy when we're uploading products to quickly overlook all these things, and you might have done all the research, but you may not have necessarily translated that to actually the website. So make sure, number two, that you double check everything on the back end, grammar, spelling check. Please don't push live unless you know it's for certain. And then number three, make sure that below the fold is where you can actually have other areas of content that you might want to be pushing forward. Maybe you want to have other products as far as linking sites, linking other product pages. So if you want to do some cross-selling or upselling, the bottom of the page is the greatest place you can do that. Remember, you've done so much work to get your customer to this product page. If you fail them now, they will probably not return, right? So it's super important. About 80%